Good morning, everybody. We're just letting people in from the waiting room.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us on a sunny, I don't know what today is, Tuesday, on a Sunday, Tuesday, to hear about the BOS RFP that just came out. I'm Liz Isaacs. I know a lot of you on the call, and I am with Shannon Quinn Sheeran. This is actually the first year we're doing a bidders conference. We've talked about it in the past, and so I'm glad we have a lot of you joining, and we hope to be able to field a lot of questions so that when you get started, and some of you probably already gotten started, you feel like you know a little more of what you're doing. That being said, we're always around to answer questions. Okay. And we always like to let folks know that this is being recorded, both so that you know that you're being recorded, but also so that you know that this will be up on the BOS website shortly. So if you want to see it again, you want to have a coworker look at it, or anyone who couldn't join us today can hop on our website and see the recording and slides. So what are we going to do today? We're going to give you a little bit of information about the background. We're going to go through deadlines and timelines. We'll talk about the sections that everyone's going to complete. We'll talk about the sections that just the joint projects might complete, PSH would complete. Shannon's going to take you through some Zengen slides, so you're going to know exactly how to apply. We're going to tell you that scoring factors will be available shortly, and we'll tell you how you can take a look at the scoring sheet, which will be posted to the website shortly. We've got some tips, and the tips come from the scoring committee. So in the past, we've just been collecting the comments and feedback that the scoring committee's provided, and we're going to share some of that with you to give you some insights. We'll remind you about everything we talked about, and we will field questions. All along the way, you're welcome to ask a question. We are thinking, we'll see how it works. It might be best for you to put it in the chat box, because that helps us keep a record, and then we might release FAQ. But if you can't join, if you're having any issues with the chat box, or you'd rather unmute yourself, we'll figure that out too. So we want you to ask questions as we go along. We put it at the end just to remind people, but ask away.
And also, before we end, I didn't put it on the agenda, but I'm going to go through like a demo of how you do this in Zengen as well.
Very good. Okay. So this part's really, really important. If you have one takeaway from the whole webinar, it's this. We have very detailed instructions, and they're very detailed because, as many of you know, so some of you may be new to this and may not know the HUD world, but anyone who knows the HUD world knows they have lots of requirements and rules and regulations and things you really have to follow. And so we have a lot of that in the instructions, and then the instructions are just going to tell you how to do this. So this webinar is meant certainly to help you, but we are providing highlights because we only have an hour. So it's not at all, it doesn't replace reading the instructions. So we kind of can't say that enough. You really cannot do the RFP without being able to look at the RFP instructions, which are their own document. Okay. So the background, again, for some of you, you know this, but we want to make sure that this is an inclusive process, and that we have agencies that maybe have never applied before. Maybe it's their first time hearing about this. So we'll just do a quick background that every year BOS competes with CoCs all around the country for money. We're lucky enough to now, every year we get more money. We get about 45 million, which is fantastic. In 2019, we got over 3 million, and you guys may know, some of you may know, last year there was no new project funding. So all the renewals were funded, but there was no funding. But the last time there was funding, we got all 3 of our bonus projects funded. And like I said before, we want everyone to apply. If you've applied before, we want you to keep applying, but we just want to make sure this is an open process. So we make sure that CCEH, CSH, and the partnership let folks know about the RFP. And if anybody knows another way we should be sharing this information, please let us know and help us spread the word. We provide technical assistance to anyone who needs it. So you can give us a call. We'll answer any questions. You know, we want this is not a gotcha process. We want everybody to submit the best and most complete application they can, show off all the good work that all of you do. So ask us questions. That's what we're here for. So here's the timeline. Last week we put out the RFP. Today's the bidders conference. The big due date you want to remember is June 2nd. So that's has to be submitted in ZenGen. The scoring committee, we normally would meet once for like 5 or 6 hours for a marathon meeting, but that doesn't work in the world of COVID. So we will have 3 or 4 separate meetings for the scoring committee throughout the month of June. We are, and as you know, we have to look at our crystal ball now. So we think the HUD notice of funding availability will be released June, July. And this is important because we can't make any decisions on new project funding until we see what the NOFA says. So if by chance HUD's just is busy and this doesn't come out until September, then this whole timeline is not relevant, right? It all gets pushed off. We think the way they're moving, it would be a summer release. And then once the projects are decided upon, which ones will be submitted to HUD, they go into what's called eSnaps. Again, many of you on the line know about eSnaps, but this is the electronic system where we submit the application. We actually submit it on behalf of the agency. So you do not do, you're done by then. But just so you know about the process, awards, again, fall, winter 2021, and then grant agreements sometime thereafter. Shannon, did I miss anything?
Just that the 6/2 deadline will stay the same regardless of what time, when the NOFA comes out or not. That will stay the same.
There's some deadlines we have to just set and make some assumptions. So great. So who can apply? These are the folks that can apply: nonprofits, states, and local government. That's very funny. The instrumentality is, I think this is like LMHAs and local governments and public housing agencies. Okay. So we're just giving you high-level guidelines. There are lots of other requirements, but just to let you know that applicants can apply for one of each of the housing model types in a CAN. So if you're in the Hartford, Greater Hartford CAN, you cannot put in 3 PSH applications, but you could put in a joint TH rapid rehousing and a PSH for Hartford, and then you could put something else in. You could put a PSH in New Haven. But you just can't put 3 PSH projects or 2 PSH projects in the same CAN. You have to agree to participate in HMIS. And for those of you who don't know what HMIS is, it's the Homeless Management Information System. And this is where all the data are collected and reported for all the participants that we serve. And any COC funded project is required to do this. You also have to participate in the coordinated access network process. So you need to get your referrals through the CAN. You need to participate in how housing placement happens. And there's no work that's done outside of the CAN. You have to comply with everything, HUD requires and everything the COC requires. You have to be in good standing with HUD. So that means you don't have any open findings from monitoring visits. You don't have any big spending issues. And then, like I said, lots of other requirements, but we want to start off highlighting these. Shannon, I see one chat. Should we? So if we were awarded grants in the first round of YHDP, which are now rolled into COC, are we eligible to apply for bonus dollars? Grants in the first round. In the first round of YHDP, can your agencies can apply now for bonus dollars? Yes. And you can apply as a youth project.
I'd say yes.
That's the question. If we need support services for an under-resourced, yes, PSH project, would a new award be combined with the original for reporting purposes? Yeah, so we're going to talk about this one in a minute. So we'll talk about that. But thank you. I just wanted to stop for a second. Okay. So everyone is going to tell us about your applicant experience, and you're going to brag about yourself and talk about how you're unique and qualified to do this. You're going to let us know, how you have the ability basically to do the project. That's sort of what this section is about. So you're going to talk about your fiscal, your management structures. You're going to tell us that you're effectively using, hopefully, any federal funds you may have gotten, and that you're going to use housing first, and you're going to be able to do all these great things with the project because your agency has the experience to do it. Okay. You're going to do a project description. And you're going to let us know what kind of services you're going to provide, how folks are going to get Social Security, how folks are going to get food stamps. You're going to tell us some projected outcomes, what's all the great stuff you're going to do and what percentage of people are going to get SSI or leave to permanent housing, and let us know what you think is going to happen and how you're going to coordinate with partners. How are you working with any of the one-stop centers, how you're working with social services, how you're working with other not-for-profit agencies. You want to make sure you're going to tell us about how the project's going to happen time-wise. So when are you going to fill your units? When will you be at full capacity? And if it's a construction project, we need to know about development activities and that timeline. This is very high level. So there are lots of sub questions under these, but you hear us talk about it a lot. The big question, how are folks going to obtain and remain in housing? And that's specific to the PSH projects, and how you will engage and move eligible participants into the project for TH and RRH. And again, ensure that you're going to get participants into both of those projects. And then how, for everyone, how are they going to increase employment and increase income? And again, lots of sub questions to sort of prompt you on how to answer those in the application.
Yeah, and I just want to say there's lots of help text in both in the instructions and then in some of the stuff in Zengen. But in terms of the THRRH, we just wanted to bullet like how you will engage and move participants into each component type, into TH, and then follow through into rapid rehousing.
Great. You're going to have to provide information on your budget. So how much money do you want and what do you want it for? So you're going to look at the allowable expenses. We'll talk about that for each of the projects. Indirect costs, administrative costs. You want to make sure that you're providing enough money for supportive services. And we're going to talk about this in a few slides. You just really want to make sure that you can serve the population that you've identified. And so we have some, in the next couple slides, we'll talk about sort of limits and suggestions. So the way the process works is you're going to submit a budget and you're going to say, I want 10 units, 10 PSH units. And then we're going to say, we're looking at Waterbury's need, and your project was selected by the scoring committee. And we're going to look at the need and say, I think we need 14 units in Waterbury because we looked at the need in the can. And so we're going to come back to you potentially and say, hey, can you do 14 units instead of 10 units? And so obviously that's going to change the way the budget works. And some of you on the call have been through this process. So you're going to submit to us what you want, but it always seems to switch up a little bit. But we work with you to sort of determine those final budgets and go back and forth with you. What's really important is folks know about match. So again, those of you who've done this know how important this is because it's a HUD requirement. So you want to make sure that you have the ability for a match. And this is for the TH and the RRH projects, because for the PSH projects, DEMIS provides the match. So if you're doing PSH, DEMIS provides the match. For joint TH rapid rehousing, you're going to show us this. You just want to make sure that you're using, it's all eligible COC activities for the match. It has to be at least 25% of the total grant minus leasing. And it can be public or private, and cash is king. So cash if possible, as opposed to in kind. And we generally recommend that because the in-kind requirements are a little more onerous. It's hard to document, and the cash is really just the way to go if that's possible.
I wanted to just add, in terms of admin costs in that first bullet, admin is not a budget that we ask you to input. That's worked out after the fact with providers. So it's not something you have to figure out and determine ahead of time or submit when you submit your application. And providing sufficient supportive services is also an important area. It's an important area in the budget, but in your narrative as well. These housing components are for people who need supportive services in order to maintain their housing. So it's important to consider the amount of supportive services you're providing people, and to note that that's enough to keep them in the housing. I think there's a question, right?
Yeah,
Do
so
we need
you
to
do
submit a
not
written
need to
commitment
submit
from-
written commitment for match. It's just, it's in the application. Okay,
No, that's all worked out of fact, yeah.
all right, so we are going to talk about the two separate model types. So we'll start off with PSH. And just for folks who may be new, PSH is about affordable housing coming together with services to address the needs of the folks we're serving. Eligible populations for the PSH projects are people who meet dedicated plus definition. And we're going to talk about that in a few slides. Folks who are familiar with the work that's going on now know that we switched over from chronic homeless to dedicated plus. And that is now statewide, how referrals are done through the cans, and it's a dedicated plus model. So primarily in looking at the need, we're looking for applications that are for individuals, but you can apply for families. And then there's a place in the application where you tell us about the need and why you feel like families should be served. And you have the ability to do that there. All right, so we talked a little bit about this. So unless your project has another source of funding, you should be asking in PSH for at least 5,000 and no more than 7,500 per household annually for services. So that's an important number as you crunch the numbers, that it should fall in that range. And here are some of the allowable expenses. So you can, it's for rent, tenant, project, or sponsor-based, operating, support services, project administration, although as Shannon pointed out, you're not identifying those in the application, but you will get them. And also, folks that are looking for rental assistance, we're encouraging people to use tenant or sponsor-based, because we've seen in the project-based that folks get stuck just in one building with the units and don't seem to be able to always spend all their money, and you just have more flexibility in project or sponsor-based. Anything? Oh, I know. And then if you are applying for youth or families, we just talked about this, but in trying to talk about why you're asking for the dollars for families or for youth, we're going to ask you to give us some facts and figures. So you might have to go to your CAN, you might do a little bit of research and say, this is what the unmet need is about. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to read all of this, and you guys may know Dedicated Plus even better than I do, but if we focus on the bold, because these are really the ones that will impact us. So we know you can be chronically homeless. Number 2 is not relevant for BOS, but we just kind of gave you everything. For number 3, this is about folks who were housed in PSH or rapid rehousing and lost their placement. So they need to be chronically homeless at entry. They have to currently be living in shelter or be unsheltered or safe haven. They have to have been in rapid rehousing and PSH within the last year. All right, let's do the next. Number 4 is also not relevant to BOS, but we have it there. Number 5 is about 12 months in the last 3 years on fewer than 4 separate occasions. And number 6 is really not generally used, but that is Dedicated Plus if you guys need to refer back to it. So I was mentioning this before, the allocation of units among the highest scoring application is based on how much money we have. So we don't know that yet. We'll know once the NOFA is released from HUD. And then we also are going to look at data from the CANs to try to address unmet need in each of the CANs. I think we have a hand raised. Wayne, did you want to ask a question?
I think there's a raised hand here.
Okay.
Wayne, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you can go back once to the previous 2 slides. Is there any wiggle room here for youth? Youth we're getting them through the CAN, so they're considered to have been chronically homeless, but they may not have been in a shelter for an entire year. Is there any workaround for youth with some of these requirements?
There's no special rules that apply to youth that don't apply to everybody else in terms of the definition of dedicated plus this residing in emergency shelter or other types of homelessness for 12 months. is still a requirement for those. There is the ability to certify that in different ways. If you have shelter, if you have outreach people working with them, if you know they've been outside and not in a shelter, but still homeless, you can certify that in different ways, but it's not a lessening of the 12-month for youth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're
Next
gonna
slide,
talk
right,
about-
Liz?
Next, services only now, yeah. So I think this is Sylvia's question. Yep. So you can also apply for services only for existing PSH projects, and funding is for projects that don't have services already attached there, or they have less than the total annual services funding from all sources is less than 75% of the CT limit. So that's less than 5,625 per year. So this gives folks the ability to add services where there aren't services. Yes.
Or where they're insufficient.
Or when they're in,
services, yeah.
excuse me, and when they're insufficient services, which is really important too, because we know that exists in a bunch of projects. Yep. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the Joint Transitional Housing and Rapid Rehousing Project. This is really important. So it's only for existing COC funded TH projects. So it's really only applicable for a handful of projects, because we don't have a lot of too many TH projects. And the purpose is to increase exit options for folks, reduce the length of stay, and then help budgets that just aren't working for a project. The idea is the TH component has a safe space for people. The rapid rehousing provides financial assistance in moving people into permanent housing. Eligible populations are here: homeless families and individuals who meet the HUD criteria, the HUD homeless definition, category 1, category 4. I won't read all of these, but this is important. Make sure that we know who's eligible for this. The cap is at 24 months. Allowable costs, so you can do leasing, operating, short or medium term rental assistance, and in the rapid rehousing piece, support services and administration. And I'm just going to keep saying it so nobody gets confused. You're not going to ask for admin dollars in the application, but they are available. And then for these projects, unless the project has another source of funding, you should ask for at least $4,000 per household, but can't apply for more than $7,500 per household for services. You must be able to offer both of the components to all participants. It doesn't mean that all participants are going to partake in both of them, but it has to be available to everyone. And you can't require that people start in, enter rapid rehousing, but have to go to TH first. Okay.
All right. And
Yeah.
how do I via Zengen? So if you already have, because we started using Zengen a little while back now, if you are already a provider and already have an account with Zengen, you'll use this link and you'll be able to sign in with your regular the username that you already have and your password. If you don't already have an account, it'll prompt you to sign up and create a new username and password. But even if you do have an account already, this profile is completely new and separate and different. So everyone will have to create a new profile, because it asks you all those agency related questions about your history of receiving HUD or government funds, all those questions that Liz talked about earlier. So you click the blue sign up button if you haven't created an account already. Complete your password creation with those criteria that were on the previous slide. I'm not going to walk through everything that's written here, but it is here if you need to refer back to. And at the end of the presentation, there's a link to a separate instructions document. So that's here, and that's also posted on the CT BOS website. Let's create a profile, and that takes you to the screen below. And you see this save draft the save draft button here. So if you have to stop in the middle of the profile or the application, you can always save and come back later and enter and complete it. Creating applicant profile, all fields with an asterisk are required. You click create profile at the bottom right, that saves it, where I just mentioned the save draft if you need to come back later. The home page appears after you create your profile with a green complete to the right of the profile, but you'll also be able to edit it up through the submission date if you need to. Actually, that's not true. You will be, once you click complete, it's complete, you won't be able to edit anymore. Oh, sorry, this moved way ahead. I think that's where we go. Okay. So there you go. The new, if you need to go back to it, new project application, click the blue edit. So that is true. You can edit the profile until 6/2. I apologize. On the bottom half of the home page, here's where you've completed the profile. You can click get started. If this is not your first submission, there will be a blue square and it'll say add another. And you click that to add if you wish to submit more than one application. So get started brings you to this next bottom right screen and you click open to continue. Again, all fields with an asterisk are required. It's not going to let you submit without completing all the fields with an asterisk. Use save draft as you would for the profile. Click mark complete at the bottom right once all fields are complete. I just want to say you won't be able to, if you were to go into a blank profile now and look at all the questions, profile or application, there's lots of conditional logic in there. So if you look through everything now, it won't be the same as when you start clicking around and say, I want to enter a PSH project. I want to enter a PSH project. That creates new units versus add new services only. So just know that that's the way the application is built. The more fields required, fields for your particular project will open up once you start clicking through and adding your particular information.
Shannon, we have two questions.
If you do,
quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Do we need a project profile for each staff within the agency?
This is what I would say about that. I say, as with the previous Zengen, when you're for document submissions, create one file for your agency and then share the username and password for everybody you want to have access to be able to submit applications in your agency. Because, and that's the whole point of the profile, is that you only have to do that once. We wanted people to be able to answer those agency related questions. So if you want to submit 5 different projects, PSH in different cans or what have you, you don't have to answer those questions again and again and again.
Yes. So we're trying to ensure that you only need to do that once. So you're not if you have multiple applications. Great. Is copy of application available outside of Zengen?
Yeah, and
So
I see Margaret's.
Yeah, before you go in Zengen. Yep.
No, there is no copy of the application outside of Zengen.
Oh, not outside of Zengen, but once you're in Zengen, you can PDF it. No?
And I'm going to go through steps to print it afterwards, but you can't see it before you go into Zengen.
No.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is Margaret.
Margaret.
So, sorry, but so when you go in, because sometimes this happens with platforms, you can go in and you can print the PDF, but is it going to be all the questions? Because as you said, sometimes you answer a question and then it's going to, depending how you answer it, there's another question. See what I mean?
So if you go in there now and everything's blank, you're not going to be able to see every question. No.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you go in and just answer a few of the questions, you'll get the rest of them. So you're not, if you're in PSH or or joint, right? So you can answer a few. Shannon, keep me honest, but if you
Yeah,
go
and
and answer
also,
a few
I
of the
think
questions, yeah.
if you answer a few of the questions, and also if you put the basics in there, like the type of project, and then you just put placeholder answers in there because you know you're going to come back in it and save a draft, don't complete it, save a draft. And even where it's at, like there's lots of text boxes for just put like words, you know, words like I'm going to fill this in later. You'll be able to see all those questions.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
There's another, Kathy, if you already are operating a TH.
Yeah, no,
Does
so
that go away
TH
if you
has,
are-
THRH
think
has both components. And we didn't go into the nitty gritty. There is a rule where you can't spend more than 50% on the TH because HUD just wants you, focused on both components, but you do still have both components.
But I think that your current grant would be consolidated into a combination
Yes.
THRH.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just meant the TH still exists, but yes. Yep.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. I think that's it for now. New project. So upon marking your application complete, this is the screen that you'll see with the project name at the top. See it right here. It's test RFP SQ. You still have to submit it. It's not submitted yet because you see this green submit button. So you click the submit button. Once you click that, another screen will appear saying this has been submitted, and you will also receive a confirmation email saying it's been submitted. So I would recommend a copy, like don't keep a copy of that email. Once it's been submitted, you can also click view. That will display the document just submitted, and you can also download the document by clicking view if desired. I'm going to go through how you download and print that in a minute. Once submitted, this document is no longer editable. The profile is until the due date, but the project specific document is not. If you wish to submit an additional project application, go back to the home page by just clicking home page, which is in the top left of the screen, or use the original link and proceed to that plus sign, that blue plus sign, and add another. So printing is also recommended after you submit an application. So after submit, click the view button. There's a blue downward facing arrow just to the right of RFP. Click the print button and adjust as necessary to either print or save as a PDF. So there's lots of tips. Remember required field, and remember that conditional logic that I mentioned that's throughout. In the text in Zengen, there are lots of bulleted lists when it asks you specific questions, describe how you're going to provide supportive services, and it'll have like 5 different things that it asks you to describe. Pay attention to that. That's what the reviewers use when they're looking to score your application. So those bulleted lists are important. There are specific items that refer to PSH only or joint TH and RH only. So pay attention to those depending on your project type. Pay attention to word count limits. It won't let you go beyond the word count limit. So those are usually in parentheses at the end of a question, and they're also at the bottom right of the text box. And it tallies the number of words as you go. So pay attention to those. Households and units is a tricky section. So it does ask you at some point, are the number of households that you propose to serve the same as the number of units? Because HUD allows and in some instances encourages shared housing. It's a more affordable option for people, but it's not something that has been used traditionally a lot in CT BOS. We do allow for it, however. So if you propose one household per one unit, you just answer yes to that question and move on. If you answer no, it's something's going to pop up that's saying, okay, you're proposing that your people, your households are going to share units. So now you've given us that you're serving 10 households. How many units are you going to serve for your households? So those boxes will open up if you select no, it's not the same. But item descriptions for each line item that you add, you're going to request, there's going to be a text box that opens up, and pay attention to the example that's given for each section, for the supportive services section or the operating section, and how the details are given for how you're going to outline. So for how many FTEs you're going to use to provide case management. So I'm going to provide 2 FTEs. For a case manager who receives $50,000 per year, for example. And we're going to provide 0.25 FTEs of supervision for a person who receives $60,000 per year plus 18% fringe, right? So that type of detail, or a different kind of budget for how many households you're going to provide utility allowances for, if that's one of the things, and in 1 year's term, that type of a thing. So, and there are a few potential attachments. These don't apply to every grant for sure, every proposal. But if you have a NICRA or a negotiated indirect cost rate with HUD, and if you have one, you know what it is, we're going to ask you to attach that. If you have a project that involves capital development, there are situations in which we need evidence of site control, and you're going to attach that. And then the congregate project-based rental assistance or sponsor-based rental assistance may also require evidence of site control, and that more information pops up about what's needed for those attachments if those things apply to you. Scoring factors, a document on scoring factors and how this is going to be scored is coming soon. It's going to be posted on the CoC application page, and an email will be sent out when that's available. Application tips. So make sure, again, that you highlight what makes your agency and project unique. Liz talked about some of this before, how you work with the partners in your area and what relationships already exist that are going to strengthen your application and your project. Provide concrete examples of how participants will be provided services to maintain permanent housing. Name partner and community agencies, and then all the parts of your applications to work together. So what you say in your budget, how much services you're going to provide in this or that area should match your narratives about how you talk about how you're going to provide services for people. And services should be tailored to the specific population you're proposing.
Yeah. So just on that quickly, the scoring committee really highlighted, how are you uniquely positioned to serve the people that you say you're going to serve? What makes your agency stand out? And then, that it's not a canned application, that it's not something you pulled up from 5 other applications, that it really sounds like it's serving CT BOS, it's addressing housing first, it's addressing the specific unmet need, if that's applicable for your CAN. Specifics and data, for some folks who do this is, not new to you, but if it's new to, if you're new to this, maybe try to pay attention to that. And someone just asked, is that profile scored? There will be experience of applicant is one of the scoring factors. We can tell you that because that's always there. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So just to remind you, the due date for applications, new project applications, is end of business June 2nd. Please complete, there's a survey, which is linked here, and it's also linked in Zengen at the end. Please complete that when you complete the process. Your feedback is important, especially in this first year that we're using Zengen. We want to know any recommendations that you have and how your experience was. refer to that. We can't say enough, as Liz said, that new project application instructional document early and often for definitions, program descriptions, allowable expenses, and lots more information. Sign up for CT BOS emails. There's a link here to ensure you receive any new updated information. There's a link here, CT BOS application page. Any new information that we get regarding funds available will appear there. And then there's that document about instructions specific for Zension that's linked here. Question. We could take a couple questions, and then I think if there are any, and I'll go through a demo of Zension. So you can either put them in the chat box or, okay. Will this presentation be shared with us? Yeah, I think Liz said in the beginning, we're going to post the slides, and we'll also post the recording of the presentation to the website. All right, you feel free to add more questions. This is not your last opportunity, but I'm gonna share my Zension screen now.
So no, there's no specific process for requesting TA. You can shoot us an email. You can give us a call if it's a question that you want to have a conversation about. So that's fine. You can touch base with Shannon or with me.
And we have a slide at the end with our contact information
Yep.
as well. So am I sharing the Zension screen now? Okay, when you go to that link, this is where it will bring you, and I'm going to sign up as a new user. I'm going to create a new password. But you can see here, it tells you what the criteria for the password is. So you don't have to refer back to the document if you don't have that in front of you. Click sign up. Okay. And create a new profile. The instructions are also linked here. Zension instructions, if you need them. Create a profile to get started. So this is where you'll see, I'm just going to put in some information. And there's drop downs. There are a few fields that aren't required. Most are required. If you're not having a subrecipient agency, you don't need to fill that out. Contact information. So project name, project type. Someone asked us if there's only 2 right now placeholders. We talked about that it's possible to submit more than 2, so we'll create 8 fields. People can tell us they're doing more than 2, and we have to say which can we're working in.
Shannon, can I ask a question? So if someone already has an account info set up, but maybe it wasn't the person, it might not have been the person who should be set up now. Can they just use that information, or should they start over? Should they create another account? I mean, as long as they
create another, create your own. Then you have your own username and password, but you can share that for anyone who wants to do anything for a project application submission, and then use that other information for document submission.
And then there was a question. So if you are a new PSH project, you are required to get approval by the local mental health authority, because you're going to have a relationship with them because they do the rental assistance. So you would reach out to whoever your LMHA is, and touch base and let them know what you are proposing.
Mhm. So this is an indirect cost. If you click yes, you're going to be asked more information on which indirect cost. So like I said, if you have a NICRA, then it's going to ask you your rate, and it's going to ask you to select a file, right? I'm going to click no though, for the purposes of see that. Okay, experience of applicant. These are the bullets I was talking about to describe. And then these are all the questions. It's just to determine if you're in good standing with HUD or not. Drawn down funds, yes.
And so remember, if you're submitting 3 applications, you're still only doing 1 profile. So this
Yep.
profile is for the agency and it's only done once.
Create profile. Oh, it's telling me I did something wrong with here. One field. So I don't, do you see something highlighted in red?
The font is very small.
I know.
Duns? Do you need a Duns?
You don't need a DUNS because you may not have one if you
Oh, right,
haven't
yep.
applied for funds before. I'm thinking it's going to be
Can? Did you choose the can?
choose the CAM.
Oh, yeah.
Nope. Apologize for the technical difficulties here. But you can also see here word count, 1 word out of 600, 2 out of 1,000. I'm going to change my answer here and say de minimis and see if it takes that. No, it's still popping up. Something's wrong.
Someone said they thought
I
they saw
don't think
red at the
this
top.
is.
Did you find it?
Well, there's no, there's red right here, this field, there's one field that requires attention. DUNS number, name of organization, DUNS number. Shouldn't need that. Contact address line 2, shouldn't need that, but I'll put my anyway.
Project name. Project information complete for each. Oh, you did test. Do you have to choose a can for the second project?
I should. That's required, has words. All of these have words in them. This one has words.
Let's see.
Create a profile. Let me do that later. I do think it's related to that. Did you?
Yeah, so we may just need to fix that if somebody doesn't have a DUNS, right?
I think it's related to the name. So let me say again, no to that thing. Because I said that I was going to do it, and then I said that I wasn't going to do it. And I submitted a document.
Oh, got it.
Select a file. This can't be set because all of its rules aren't that. I think that's what happened. I said I was going to do it. I attached a document, then I wasn't going to do it. I was confused. So I'm going to undo that and see if that goes away. Yeah, it's that same thing. If I can't, if there we go. All right, that did it. Sorry about that. Thanks for your patience. So this brings just to the project specific questions. And this is where you say get started. And this is where you can see right now it says complete, that profile is complete, but I can still edit it and I'm going to still be able to edit that profile part until June 2nd. Get started. And open. All right, so again, the instructional documents are linked here. And you can see instructions along the way. No subrecipient name. This is set so it requires an email format. I'm going to say I'm a PSH project. Town. Central Can. So you can see all of the asterisk where it's required. I'm saying I'm creating new units, and then you see the new fields pop up. Is this process proposing to create units in a GP? So this is the LMHA question that Liz just addressed. So I'm going to say I talked to Jane Doe and she's good with me submitting that project. And then number of units proposed, number of, I'm not going to go through everything here, but you click here, the types of households you're proposing to serve below. And then when you click here, it'll ask you the specific questions related to your population. So at a single point in time, the number of households, an adult and one child that you're proposing to serve. And some of these fields are shared. So whether you're submitting a PSH or a THRRH, so you have to pay attention to the relevant one that you're filling it out for. But if I unclick that, that'll show up. So I just want to serve adult households without children. And I'm going to say, I'm going to serve 10 people. And it's and then you see there's a lot of totaling fields. Will each household have their, if I go, then it pops up how many units. Subpopulations also, fields will pop up. What percentage, if you say you're serving veterans, what percentage of households will be veterans? So pay attention to that. Is this an expansion project? Are you planning to expand another project you have and offer new units? Then new questions will pop up related to that, which are your point in time capacity. So if you, if you're not an expansion project. So if you are an expansion project, just pay attention. Those point in time questions are saying, okay, what do you have now? What are you proposing to add? And then it'll total up what the number will be with the existing and with the new. So pay attention to all of the phrasing used there and all of the words there. Project description with the bullets. Evidence demonstrating site control if that's needed. This is where you select the file. And then we go into the budget section. So I just want to demonstrate here. Again, it's going to ask you what kind, efficiency, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. I'm going to say I'm going to do 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, right? So it's going to ask me how many units, 10. Then I have to put in an FMR area. There's a link up here to where you get that FMR area. Number of 2 bedrooms, going to have 10 2 bedrooms, FMR area for them. And then it tallies the total number of rental assistance units you're going to use. Operating costs. So this is where, see this example here, $300 per unit for supplies needed to fix damages. So that's where I'm going to say I'm doing $1,000. And then I would put the appropriate description in as much detail as possible about why I need $1,000 for repairs of a year for that. And then it tallies, right? So it's gonna tally, I need $10,000 for furniture, and it there. So the total is $11,000. Supportive services does the same thing. For every place you put a dollar amount, it's gonna open up a new text box. And you're going to put words, and this is where that example, 2 FTEs, 18 fringe, put that detail in there, and then it's going to tally also that, and it's going to tally at the bottom. So this is the total amount you asked for in supportive, this is the total amount you asked for in operating, and this is the total for both. Here is the link for SurveyMonkey, and then some additional information about match. So I'm going to save draft. I know actually. Is it gonna let, I don't know if it'll let me without those required fields filled out. Yeah. Did it save it? You should be able to save it, and then it'll exist in
Yeah, I think it's saved at Shannon,
and you
right?
can go, it's telling me no, it's required. So I'm gonna just have to put in words, placeholder words, and then it'll let me save it, and then I'll go back and it'll show up as a box, and the title will be above it. So make sure you name your project something distinguishable if you're submitting more than one project, and you would go back in and open it and edit it and complete it.
Shannon, is it possible once
yeah.
you've saved it, can you delete it? Like if you say like, oh, now I'm not doing a project, or I don't want that. You can't, can you? I think
No,
you
it's
would
not
just
a way
tell,
to
I
delete
think
it.
you would just let us know and we could do it on the back end.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. Yeah.
And then there were questions. So if you have an existing PSH project, if you increase services in an existing project, that is an expansion. So yes, you would say yes to expansion.
That is an expansion.
If you have an existing PSH project, can you propose a separate project, or must it be an expansion? So it would be up to you. You know, you can certainly propose a new PSH project if it's in fact a new PSH project. But if what you're really looking to do is enhance your current project, then you would do that as an expansion.
Yeah.
It is noon, but we're happy if anybody has a question or two. This is new to us. As you can see, we're still working our way through this. I came in reluctantly because many of you know I'm pretty Amish, but I really think it's going to be great. I think it's going to make it easier for everyone. You know, new stuff is hard and we have to all figure out how to wrap our heads around it, but I think it's just going to make the process so much easier, and we're not going to be old school of, you know, attaching documents and going through Gmail. I think it's just a much more sophisticated system, and, you know, we've been learning it over the last year. We had pretty positive feedback from providers so far in the way that they've used it, but we'll see, and we're in it together. So we'll help you through whether it's a content question you want to talk through, or if it is a WISE Hive question, and we'll figure it out together. So we really appreciate you guys joining and having a nice big group. I'd encourage you to get in as soon as you can, so you can sort of see if there's a glitch somewhere or where you might have questions, and then email us, call us, and we'll help out.